been working the graveyard shift at Crossroads Gas and Food on Highway 666 for about 6 weeks now. Most nights are quiet. A few truckers, maybe a lost tourist who took a wrong turn trying to get to Santa Fe, the occasional local heading home late. The desert stretches out in every direction, empty and dark except for our fluorescent lights. I like it that way. Less people means less trouble. But last Thursday, a customer came in that made every instinct in my body scream that something was wrong. He looked normal enough at first. Middle-aged guy in a denim jacket, dirty boots, the kind of weathered face you see a lot out here. But his eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, like someone had filled them with ink. He bought a Coke, a bag of beef jerky, and $17 worth of gas on pump 4. When he went to pay, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a handful of human teeth. Not like fake Halloween teeth, real ones with roots still attached, some with bits of pink gum tissue clinging to them. He set them on the counter, smiled at me with a mouth full of perfect white teeth that didn't match the rest of his face, and said, "This should cover it." I just stared. He waited. Then he leaned forward and whispered, "You're going to take these. Bring them up as cash, and forget you ever saw me. Because if you don't, I'll be back for yours." When I looked down at the counter, there was a crumpled $20 bill there instead. The teeth were gone. So was he. But I found one molar on the floor after my shift, still warm. My name's Jesse Cordova, and I'm 23. I moved to Shiprock from Albuquerque after my mom died, and my dad remarried someone I couldn't stand. My uncle Ernesto owns this gas station, and when he offered me the night shift, I figured why not? The pay's decent, rent's cheap in this part of the reservation. Uncle Ernesto warned me the job had quirks, but he's always been dramatic, so I didn't think much of it. The morning after the teeth got it, my uncle showed up early. He found me sitting behind the register, holding that molar in a paper towel. I'd been staring at it for 20 minutes. "He came back," Uncle Ernesto said. Not a question. I nodded. He sighed, walked to the back office, and returned with a folded piece of yellow legal paper. The edges were worn soft, like it had been handled 1,000 times. He set it on the counter next to the register. "You need to follow these exactly," he said. "Your cousin David worked here before you. He didn't listen. We found his car 3 miles down 491, driver's side door open, engine still running. No body, just his shoes in the road. He left before I could ask anything else." I unfolded the paper and started reading. The rules were written in my uncle's handwriting, pressed hard into the paper like he'd been angry or scared while writing them. Graveyard shift rules, Crossroads, gas and food. Between 2 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., a customer may come in with eyes that are entirely one color, black, white, red, etc. Serve them normally. Do not ask questions. Do not make eye contact for longer than 3 seconds. When they pay, whatever they give you will become legal currency within 60 seconds. Wait for it to change before you open the register. If you hear knocking on the back door by the storage room, ignore it. The back door has been welded shut since 1987. Nothing should be able to knock on it. Pump 4 will sometimes dispense backwards. The gallon counter will decrease instead of increase. If this happens, let it finish. Do not stop the pump. Do not go outside to check on the customer. When it reaches 0, it will reset and pump normally. A woman in a blue dress may ask you for directions to the San Juan mission. Tell her it's 18 miles north on 491, then west on County Road 5500. Do not tell her the mission burned down in 1952. Do not offer her anything except directions. If all the lights in the store go out at once, you have 30 seconds to get behind the counter and crouch below the register. Do not look at the windows. Do not look at the door. Count to 100. The lights will come back on. Sometimes a customer will ask you, What's burning? Even though there's no smoke. Tell them, just tumbleweeds in the parking lot. Nothing else. If you smell smoke during these interactions, do not react to it. At exactly 3:33 a.m., check the security monitor. If you see someone standing at pump 7, go outside immediately and tell them that pump is out of order. Offer them any other pump. If they refuse and insist on pump 7, go back inside and lock the door. Do not go back outside until 4 a.m. I read through the list 3 times. The paper smelled like tobacco and old coffee. At the bottom, my uncle had written, "David thought Rule 5 was a joke. It's not. None of them are." My shift started at 11 p.m. I got there early, made burnt coffee from the ancient pot in the back, and watched the sun set over the mesa to the west. The gas station sits 8 miles south of Shiprock, where Highway 491, what everyone still calls Highway 666, cuts through empty reservation land. The nearest house is 2 miles away. The nearest town is Nashiti. Barely a town, just a chapter house and scattered homes. Uncle Ernesto showed up at 10:45 p.m. He looked tired, older than I remembered. "You read them?" "Yeah." "Uncle, what is this?" "It's Rio Mijo. I know how it sounds." He showed me a photo on his phone. David's silver Dodge Ram, driver's door open on Highway 491, both shoes sitting in the road behind it like someone stepped right out of them. State police said heat exhaustion, desert wandering, but I know what happened. What happened? He broke Rule 5. The lights went out around 3:15 a.m. David thought it was funny. Stood up, walked to the window, looked outside. When the lights came back on, David was gone. Just his shoes behind the counter. I swallowed. The coffee tasted like pennies. "Why the hell didn't you warn him?" "I did. He laughed at me. Same way you wanted to just now." Uncle Ernesto headed for the door, then stopped. "The rules keep you safe, Jesse. This place, something's wrong with it. Always has been. My grandfather used to say this whole stretch of road is cursed. Something happened here a long time ago. Something that didn't get put to rest properly." After he left, I spent the first hours of my shift rereading the rules. Midnight came and went. A trucker stopped for diesel. An older Navajo woman bought cigarettes and a lottery ticket. A kid around my age got $50 of unleaded and paid with a debit card that declined twice before going through. Normal. Everything was completely normal. Then at 1:47 a.m., all the lights in the parking lot went out at once. Not the ones inside, just outside. The whole lot went black, and I couldn't see past the glass doors anymore. Just darkness pressing up against the windows like something solid. That's when I heard the knocking. It came from the back of the store, by the storage room. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the door that had been welded shut for 36 years. The knocking came again. 3 more slow strikes against metal. Rule 2 was clear. Ignore it. The back door has been welded shut since 1987. I stayed at the register, hands shaking. Outside, the parking lot was completely dark. I could see my reflection in the glass doors, pale under the interior lights. Beyond that, nothing. Just black. The knocking continued. Not frantic or urgent. Patient. Like whoever was out there knew I could hear them and was willing to wait. I pulled out my phone to call Uncle Ernesto, then stopped. What would I even say? That the rules were real? That something was knocking on a welded door? He'd already told me. He'd already warned me. David had died because he didn't listen. The parking lot lights came back on at 1:53 a.m. Just like that. 1 second, I was staring at darkness pressed against the windows. The next, the fluorescent glow was back, casting its familiar blue-white light over the pumps and the cracked asphalt and the empty highway beyond. I could see my Jeep parked by the dumpster. I could see the bug-splattered sign advertising diesel for $3.89 a gallon. The knocking stopped. I walked to the back of the store, past the aisles of chips and candy, past the beer cooler that hummed too loud. The storage room door was closed. I pressed my ear against it. Silence. I knew I shouldn't, but I tried the handle anyway. Locked, like always. Through the small window in the door, I could see the storage room and the emergency exit sign's dim glow. Boxes of inventory, a mop bucket, metal shelving, and at the far wall, the back door. It looked normal. Gray metal, no handle on the inside, a thick bead of welding across the seam where it had been permanently sealed. No one had knocked on it. No one could knock on it. But I'd heard it. I went back to the register and poured the cold coffee down the sink, made a fresh pot, even though my hands were still unsteady. The clock above the cigarette display read 2:11 a.m. I'd made it past Rule 2. 6 more rules to worry about. At 2:34 a.m., a man walked in. He wore a brown canvas jacket, work boots, and a Navajo Nation baseball cap pulled low. Nothing strange about him. Nothing obviously wrong. I didn't notice his eyes until he was standing right in front of the counter, holding a bag of Fritos and a bottle of water. They were completely white. Not cloudy like cataracts. Not pale blue. Pure white. Like someone had painted over his pupils and iris with correction fluid. No veins. No variations in color. Just white. Between 2 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., a customer may come in with eyes that are entirely one color. Serve them normally. "Just these," he said. His voice was normal. Gravelly. Like a longtime smoker. I scanned the Fritos. My hands had stopped shaking. That surprised me. Maybe some part of my brain had shifted into autopilot, accepting that this was happening. $2.79. He pulled out his wallet and handed me a $5 bill. I took it, careful not to look at his eyes for more than a second or two. The bill felt normal. Paper, slightly worn, smelling faintly of leather from his wallet. Rule 1 said whatever they gave me would become legal currency within 60 seconds. I glanced at the clock. 2:35 a.m. I held the $5 bill, watching it. The man waited. He didn't seem impatient. He stood there like someone used to waiting, hands in his pockets, head slightly tilted. At 2:36 a.m., the $5 bill was still a $5 bill. Abraham Lincoln's face stared up at me from the worn paper. Treasury seal, serial number, everything normal. If you like the stories, please hype the videos from a button like this just above the comment section. It helps the videos to get more reach and perform well. It would take just a few seconds and cost nothing, but would help the channel grow even faster. Thank you. I opened the register and gave him his change. 2 ones and a quarter. He took them without a word and left. Through the glass doors, I watched him walk to an old red Ford F-150 parked at Pump 2. He got in, started the engine, and drove away south on 491. His taillights disappeared into the dark. I looked down at the $5 bill in the register. It was a $5 bill. Legal currency. Still Abraham Lincoln. Still the same serial number I'd glimpsed earlier. Had I been holding it for 60 seconds? I checked the clock. 2:37 a.m. I'd been holding it for 2 minutes before putting it in the register. So it had changed, or it had always been real. I couldn't tell the difference. The coffee finished brewing. I poured myself a cup, added 3 sugars and powdered creamer, and stood behind the counter watching the empty highway. A semi-truck passed heading north, its trailer lit up with running lights. A few minutes later, an SUV went by heading south. Normal traffic, normal night, except for the white-eyed man and the knocking on a welded door. I checked my phone. No messages. I'd texted my friend Luis earlier, asking if he wanted to hang out after my shift, but he hadn't responded. Probably asleep. Normal people were asleep at 2:43 a.m. At 3:15 a.m., a car pulled into the lot and parked at Pump 4. A newer model sedan, silver or gray in the fluorescent light. I couldn't see the driver through the glare on the windshield. The pump started automatically when they swiped their card. I glanced at the display panel that showed the pump readouts. Pump 4's screen was active. The gallon counter was going down. It started at 0.00, but instead of counting up as gas flowed into the tank, the numbers decreased. Negative 0.45 gallons, negative 0.89 gallons, negative 1.23 gallons. Rule 3, Pump 4 will sometimes dispense backwards. Let it finish. Do not stop the pump. Do not go outside to check on the customer. I watched the counter drop. Negative 2.67 gallons. Negative 3.14 gallons. The person outside hadn't come inside. They were just standing there pumping gas that, according to the machine, was flowing backwards into the earth, or into nothing, or into some place the numbers couldn't follow. Minus 5.52 gallons, minus 7.89 gallons. My phone buzzed. A text from Luis. "Yeah, man, I'm down. You get off at 7, right?" I typed back, "Yeah, meet at Blake's. Blake's Lottaburger in Shiprock. Good breakfast burritos." That. When I looked up, the counter on Pump 4 had reached negative 14.38 gallons. It hung there for a moment, then suddenly reset to 0.00. The numbers started going up normally. 0.45 gallons, 1.1, 2 gallons, 3.67 gallons. At 8.02 gallons, the pump stopped. The silver sedan drove away without the driver ever coming inside. I never saw their face. I pulled out the yellow paper and unfolded it, reading through the rules again. Rule 4 was next, the woman in the blue dress asking for directions. Then Rule 5, the lights going out. Rule 6, someone asking about smoke. Rule 7, checking the security monitor at exactly 3:33 a.m. I checked the clock, 3:22 a.m. 11 minutes until I had to check the security monitor for someone standing at Pump 7. I really hoped there wouldn't be anyone there. The minutes crawled. I reorganized the cigarette display, restocked the coffee station, wiped surfaces that didn't need wiping, anything to keep busy. The clock seemed stuck, each minute stretching out. 3:28 a.m., 3:29 a.m., 3:30 a.m. At 3:32 a.m., I positioned myself in front of the security monitor under the counter. 4 grainy feeds, store interior, front parking lot, pumps, back lot with the dumpster. The pump feed was the one I needed to watch. 7 pumps total, arranged in 2 rows. Pumps 1 through 4 on the near side, pumps 5 through 7 on the far side, closest to the highway. All empty. No cars. No people. I watched the second hand on the wall clock sweep toward the 12. My phone showed 3:32:47 a.m. 13 seconds. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed steadily. A moth battered itself against the glass doors, drawn to the light. On the highway, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance, heading north. They passed without slowing. 3:32:58 a.m. 3:32:59 a.m. 3:33:00 a.m. I looked at the monitor. Someone was standing at Pump 7. The figure was small on the grainy feed, just a dark shape next to the pump, but definitely human-sized. They weren't moving, just standing there, facing the store. Rule 7. If you see someone standing at Pump 7, go outside immediately and tell them that pump is out of order. Offer them any other pump. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, my legs feeling heavy. Through the glass, I could see the parking lot clearly. Pumps 1 through 4 were visible from this angle. The far pumps were partially obscured by the canopy supports, but I should be able to see someone standing there. I couldn't see anyone. I pushed through the door. The night air smelled of sage and gasoline. The canopy lights hummed overhead. I walked toward pump 7, footsteps echoing. No one was there. I checked pump 6, pump 5. Empty. I walked around the canopy supports to make sure no one was hiding. Nothing. Just the empty pumps in the dark highway. I went back inside, locked the door, and checked the security monitor again. The timestamp showed 3:34 a.m. The pump feed showed all 7 pumps clearly. No one at pump 7, no one anywhere. Had I imagined it? I rewound the footage, scrolling back through the last few minutes. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the feed glitched. Just for a second, a burst of static, and when it cleared, there was a figure at pump 7. I watched myself leave the store, watched myself check the pumps, watched myself come back inside. On the monitor, the figure never moved. They just stood there the entire time I was outside, even though I'd been standing right next to pump 7. At 3:34:17 a.m., another burst of static, and the figure was gone. I sat down on the stool behind the register and tried to steady my breathing. 4 rules down, 3 to go. Rule 4, the woman in blue. Rule 5, the lights. Rule 6, the smoke question. The rest of the shift had to be easier. It had to be. At 3:47 a.m., a woman walked in. She wore a blue dress, old-fashioned, with a high collar and long sleeves buttoned at the wrists. The fabric looked faded. Her hair was in a bun, and she carried a small leather purse. She walked straight to the counter and smiled at me. Her teeth were very white. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was soft, polite. "I'm looking for the San Juan mission. Did you tell me how to get there?" Rule 4. Tell her it's 18 miles north on 491, then west on County Road 5500. Do not tell her the mission burned down in 1952. Do not offer her anything except directions. "It's 18 miles north on 491, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Then west on County Road 5500. "Thank you so much." She smiled again, that same pleasant smile, and started to turn away. "Do you need anything else?" The words came out before I could stop them. She turned back, her head tilting slightly. "No, thank you. Just the directions." She left. Through the glass doors, I watched her walk across the parking lot to an old sedan I hadn't noticed pulling in. Dark blue or black, hard to tell in the fluorescent light. She got in, started the engine, and drove north on 491. I stood there for a moment, then realized what I'd almost done. Do not offer her anything except directions. I'd offered, but she'd refused. Did that count as breaking the rule? Or had I gotten lucky? My hands were shaking again. I made another pot of coffee, even though I'd barely touched the last cup. The act of measuring grounds and pouring water gave me something to focus on that wasn't the security monitor or the empty parking lot or the woman in the outdated blue dress driving toward a mission that had burned down 70 years ago. At 4:12 a.m., a pickup truck pulled in. Older model, rust showing through the paint on the wheel wells. A man got out, filled his tank at pump 2, then came inside. He was maybe 50, wearing a flannel shirt and a John Deere cap. Looked like every other rancher I'd seen out here. He grabbed a pack of Marlboro Reds and a Monster Energy drink from the cooler, set them on the counter. "What's burning?" he asked. I froze. Rule 6. Sometimes a customer will ask you, "What's burning?" even though there's no smoke. Tell them, "Just tumbleweeds in the parking lot." Nothing else. "Just tumbleweeds in the parking lot," I said. He nodded like that made perfect sense and pulled out his wallet. Thought I smelled something. 37 on pump 2 plus this stuff. I rang him up. $44.67. He paid with a 50, took his change, and left. I watched him drive away, then realized my nose was burning. Smoke. I could smell smoke. Not strong, Just a faint trace, like a campfire in the distance. But there was nothing burning outside. No tumbleweeds on fire. No burning trash in the dumpster. Just the smell, hanging in the air like a ghost. Rule 6 said, if you smell smoke during these interactions, do not react to it. I didn't react. I breathed through my mouth and restocked the cigarettes behind the counter and ignored the smell until it faded away at 4:18 a.m. 2 more hours until my shift ended. 2 more hours until I could leave this place and drive home and sleep and pretend this was all just exhaustion or stress or some kind of weird dream brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep. But I knew better. The rules were real. David had found that out the hard way. I checked the yellow paper again. Rule 5 was the only one left that could still happen tonight. If all the lights in the store go out at once, you have 30 seconds to get behind the counter and crouch below the register. Do not look at the windows. Do not look at the door. Count to 100. I glanced at the windows. Still dark outside, but the parking lot lights were steady. The interior lights hummed quietly overhead. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. At 4:31 a.m., all the lights went out. Not just the parking lot this time. Everything. The interior lights, the cooler lights, the signs, the register display. Complete darkness, so sudden and total that I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. 30 seconds. I dropped to my knees behind the counter, crawling into the space below the register where we kept extra receipt paper and a box of pens. My shin hit something hard, probably the trash can, but I didn't stop. I curled up as small as I could, arms wrapped around my knees, face pressed against my legs. Do not look at the windows. Do not look at the door. I squeezed my eyes shut even though it was already pitch black. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something scraped against the glass doors, long and slow, like fingernails dragging down the chalkboard. 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The scraping moved across the glass, slow and patient. Whatever was out there wasn't hurrying. It knew I couldn't look. It knew I was trapped down here, counting like my life depended on it. Because it did. 15, 16, 17. Breathing. Wet and ragged, somewhere near the door. Not human. Too deep. Too slow. Like something with lungs the size of oil drums. 18, 19, 20. My phone was in my pocket. I wanted to check the time, see how long I'd been down here. But I didn't dare move. Rule 5 said crouch and count to 100. Nothing about moving. 21, 22, 23. The breathing got closer. I could feel it now. Warm, damp air rolling across the floor, carrying a smell like spoiled meat left out in the sun. I pressed my face harder against my knees, made myself smaller. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. 24, 25, 26. Something touched the counter above me. Not a hand. At least, I don't think it was. It felt wrong. Too many contact points. Too much weight. The counter creaked. 27, 28, 29, 30. I lost count. My mind went blank for a second. Panic flooding in. Was I at 30? 31? Had I already said 30? I couldn't remember. The breathing was right above me now, so close I could feel moisture condensing on the back of my neck. Start over. Safer to start over. 1, 2, 3, 4. The thing above me shifted. The counter groaned like it might collapse. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood, forcing myself to stay still, to keep counting, to not look up at whatever was standing over me in the dark. 5, 6, 7, 8. More scraping. this time on the counter itself. Long scratches being carved into the laminate surface, deep enough that I could hear pieces flaking off and hitting the floor around me. 9, 10, 11, 12. The smell was getting worse. Rot and copper and something else, like burning hair, like wet ashes, like meat that had been buried and dug up again. 13, 14, 15. I kept counting. My jaw ached from clenching. My legs were starting to cramp from staying in this position, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. David had moved. David had looked. And now David was gone. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The breathing stopped. Silence. Complete, total silence. No scraping. No breathing. No sound at all, except the blood rushing in my ears. I kept counting. 21, 22, 23. Something dripped onto my shoulder. Warm. Thick. I didn't look. I didn't touch it. I kept counting. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. The lights came on. Not gradually, all at once, like someone had flipped a switch. The fluorescent buzz filled the air again, that familiar electrical hum. But I didn't move. The rules said count to 100. I was only at 30, 31, 32, 33. My legs were screaming now, muscles locked up from holding this position. But I kept counting. I made it to 100. 100. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking in the sudden brightness. The floor around me was clean. No drips, no moisture. Whatever had landed on my shoulder was gone. I reached up to touch the spot. Dry. Nothing there. I stood up carefully, joints popping. The counter was fine. No scratches, no claw marks, no damage at all. The register display blinked 4:32 a.m. in green numbers. I'd been under there for less than a minute. The store looked normal. The aisles were neat. The coolers hummed. The coffee pot was still half full on its burner. Through the glass doors, I could see the parking lot, empty except for my Jeep. No sign of what had been in here with me. I checked the security monitor. I rewound the footage to 4:31 a.m. and watched. The lights went out. Static filled all 4 camera feeds for exactly 47 seconds. When the feeds came back, I was standing up from behind the counter, looking around like I'd just woken from a dream. No figure, no shape in the darkness, no evidence of anything. But I knew what I'd heard, what I'd smelled, what I'd felt breathing on me in the dark. My shift ended at 7 a.m., 2.5 more hours. I'd survived all 7 rules. Now I just had to wait out the clock. At 5:15 a.m., a semi-truck pulled in for diesel. The driver came inside, paid for his fuel and a cup of coffee, and left. Normal transaction. Normal person. At 5:47 a.m., an elderly couple stopped for gas and bathrooms. The man bought a newspaper and asked if we sold propane. We didn't. They left. Normal. Everything was normal. At 6:23 a.m., Uncle Ernesto's truck pulled into the lot. He wasn't supposed to be here until 7 o'clock. I watched him park and walk toward the door, moving slowly like his back hurt. When he came inside, he looked tired. More tired than I'd ever seen him. "You made it," he said. "Yeah." My voice came out rough. I followed the rules. He nodded, walked to the coffee pot, and poured himself a cup. He didn't add sugar or cream, just drank it black, staring out at the empty highway. "Your cousin didn't believe me," he said finally. Thought I was trying to scare him. Thought it was some kind of family prank. He took another sip. I found something after he disappeared. In his car. He'd written notes about the rules, trying to figure out what they meant. trying to find the logic in them. What did he figure out? That they don't have logic. Not the kind we understand. Uncle Ernesto set his cup down. This station sits on bad ground, Jesse. My grandfather told me stories when I was young. Before this was Highway 666. Before it was Highway 491. Before it was even a road. This was a trading route. Navajo, Pueblo, Apache. Everyone used it, and everyone knew there was a place along the route where you didn't stop after dark. Here? Close enough. Maybe 100 yards east. There's a ravine there now, all overgrown with chamisa and sage. My grandfather said something happened there in the 1880s. Something bad. A trader got killed. Maybe more than one. The way he told it, someone, or something, got buried wrong. No ceremony, no blessing. Just dumped in a hole. I thought about the knocking on the welded door. The figure at pump 7 that appeared on camera, but not in reality. The thing that had breathed on me in the dark. You're saying it's haunted? I'm saying something's here that shouldn't be. Something that's been here a long time. He picked up his cup again. The rules keep it contained, keep it from spreading, but it's always looking for a way out. Through the employees? Through anyone who breaks the rules. He finished his coffee. David broke Rule 5. The lights went out, and he thought it was a power failure. Stood up, walked to the window, looked outside to see if the whole area had gone dark. Uncle Ernesto's jaw tightened. I found his shoes behind the counter. Just his shoes. Like he'd stepped right out of them and kept walking into something we can't see. We stood there in silence for a while. The sun was starting to come up, painting the eastern sky in shades of orange and pink. A few more cars passed on the highway. The world was waking up. What if I'd broken a rule? I asked. What would have happened? Uncle Ernesto looked at me. I don't know. Nobody who breaks the rules comes back to tell us. At 7 a.m. exactly, I clocked out. Uncle Ernesto took over the register, and I walked out to my Jeep. The morning air was cool and clean, smelling like sage and dust. I could hear birds singing in the scrub brush. Everything looked normal. Safe. But I knew better now. I drove home to my apartment in Shiprock, took a shower hot enough to turn my skin pink, and tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I heard that breathing. Wet and deep and patient, waiting for the next person to break the rules. I slept for 3 hours. When I woke, it was almost noon, my apartment hot from the sun. I made coffee and sat staring at my phone. Luis had texted asking if I was still coming to Blake's. I said I was too tired, maybe tomorrow. The truth was I didn't want to see anyone. Didn't want to explain why I looked like hell. Didn't want to pretend everything was normal when I could still smell that rotten copper stench. I had 4 more shifts that week. Uncle Ernesto had offered me the job because he needed someone reliable, because family helps family. I thought about quitting, just calling and saying I couldn't do it anymore. But then I thought about David, about his empty shoes, about how Uncle Ernesto had to tell David's mom that her son was missing, probably dead, never coming home. If I quit, Uncle Ernesto would have to find someone else, someone who didn't know about the rules, someone who might not believe them, someone who would end up like David. Sunday night came too fast. I showed up at 10:45 p.m. Uncle Ernesto was already there, counting the register. He looked up when I walked in. "You came back," he said. "Yeah, you don't have to. I can find someone else." "Who?" I asked. "Who's going to believe you about the rules? Who's going to follow them?" He didn't have an answer for that. My second shift was quieter than the first. Rule 2 happened again, the knocking on the welded door. I ignored it, just like the instructions said. Rule 1 brought a different customer, a woman with eyes the color of dried blood. She bought lottery tickets and a bag of Skittles. When she paid, she handed me what looked like old Mexican pesos. I waited 60 seconds, and they became a $20 bill. Rule 7 triggered at exactly 3:33 a.m. The figure appeared on the security monitor at Pump 7. I went outside, told the empty air that Pump 7 was out of order, offered them Pump 3 instead. No one answered. When I went back inside, the figure was gone from the screen. I survived. I clocked out at 7 a.m. and drove home. Tuesday night was harder. Rule 5 happened at 2:47 a.m., almost 2 hours earlier. The lights went out, and I dropped behind the counter, counting. But this time, the breathing was worse, closer, and I heard something else. A voice, whispering words I couldn't understand. Not English, not Spanish, not Navajo. Something older. When I reached 100 and the lights came back on, there was something on the counter. A small pile of what looked like ash, still warm. I swept it into the trash and didn't tell Uncle Ernesto about it. By Thursday, I was running on maybe 10 hours of sleep for the entire week. I'd started drinking energy drinks during my shift just to stay alert enough to watch the clock. Luis kept texting, asking if I was okay, if I wanted to hang out. I kept making excuses. Thursday night at 4:03 a.m., a man walked in who didn't trigger any of the rules. Just a normal guy, maybe 30, wearing a denim shirt and boots dusty from ranch work. He bought a coffee and a pack of Camels, paid with a debit card. But when I handed him his receipt, he looked at me. "You're Ernesto's nephew," he said. "Yeah. You see them too, don't you? The things that come through here." I didn't answer. He nodded, like my silence was confirmation enough. "My grandfather worked on the crew that paved this stretch of highway," he said, "back in '63, when they first numbered it 666. He told me they found things when they were excavating. Bones, not animal bones, human. Some of them looked really old, and other things. Objects, like someone had been buried with them." "What kind of objects?" "Jewelry, tools, weapons, things you'd bury with someone important, or something dangerous." He took a sip of his coffee. "They were supposed to report it. Get an archaeologist out here, do it proper. But the foreman wanted to stay on schedule, so they just buried everything again, paved right over it." "Where exactly?" He pointed east, toward the dark desert beyond the gas station. "Maybe 100 yards that way. There's a ravine. Your uncle probably knows it. His family's been on this land a long time. The same ravine Uncle Ernesto had mentioned, where his grandfather said something bad had happened in the 1880s. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you're going to want to know eventually. Everyone who works here long enough starts asking questions." He finished his coffee and threw the cup in the trash. "My grandfather said they started having dreams after they paved that section. All of them. Dreams about someone trapped underground trying to get out. 3 guys on that crew died within a year. Accidents, supposedly. But my grandfather didn't think they were accidents. He left. I watched his truck disappear south on 491, taillights fading into the pre-dawn dark. At 7 a.m., Uncle Ernesto showed up for the shift change. I told him about the conversation. "That was probably Billy Toe's grandson," Uncle Ernesto said. "Billy was on that highway crew. He's dead now. Died in '09. But yeah, I heard the same stories growing up." He poured himself coffee and added 2 sugars. "You know what they say about Highway 666, why they finally renumbered it to 491 in 2003. "Accidents," I said. "Too many accidents. More than too many. Way more than any comparable stretch of road in the entire state. Head-on collisions, single vehicle rollovers, people just driving straight off the road for no reason." He stirred sugar into his coffee slowly. "The official explanation was that drivers thought the number was unlucky, and it made them nervous, which caused accidents. So they changed the number and the accident rate went down. But you don't think that's why. I think the number was the least of the problems. I think something's been trying to get free for 140 years, and when they paved over it, they just made it angrier. I thought about the breathing in the dark, the figure that appeared on camera but not in reality, the knocking on a door that had been welded shut since before I was born. "Can it get free?" I asked. Uncle Ernesto was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," he said finally. "The rules keep it contained, but I don't know for how long, or what happens if someone breaks too many rules in one night." That Saturday, after my 4th shift of the week, I didn't go home. Instead, I drove east on Highway 491 until I found the turnoff to the old ravine. The road was barely visible, overgrown with chamisa and sage. I parked and walked. The sun was up now, desert morning light washing everything gold. It should have felt safe. It didn't. I found the ravine about a quarter mile from the highway. It wasn't deep, maybe 10 feet, but it was choked with brush and rocks and old trash that had blown in over the decades. Beer cans, plastic bags, a rusted shopping cart sitting at an angle, and bones. I saw them scattered among the rocks. Not many, and I couldn't tell if they were human or animal. But they were old, bleached white by years of sun. I climbed down carefully, boots slipping on loose gravel. At the bottom of the ravine, I found something else. A flat piece of sandstone, maybe 3 feet across, partially buried in the dirt. Someone had carved symbols into it. Not Navajo. I knew enough to recognize the difference. Something else. Something older. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. The symbols looked almost like pictographs, but the style was wrong. Too angular. Too deliberate. When I looked up, someone was standing at the top of the ravine. An older man, maybe 70, wearing a button-down shirt and jeans. Navajo with long gray hair tied back. He looked down at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You work at the gas station," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah. You've been following the rules." "How do you know?" "Because you're still alive." He started down the ravine, moving carefully but confidently, like he'd done this before. When he reached the bottom, he looked at the carved stone. I wondered when someone would come looking. "Who are you?" "My name is Thomas Begay. I'm a Hatawi, a traditional healer. Your uncle called me yesterday, said you were asking questions about what happened here." Uncle Ernesto hadn't mentioned calling anyone. "What is this place?" I asked, gesturing at the stone. "A grave," Thomas said. "An old one, from before the Spanish came, before the Americans, when the Diné were still learning this land." He crouched next to the stone, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. "The stories say a skinwalker was killed here, a powerful one. He'd been terrorizing the people, killing livestock, stealing children. Finally, a group of warriors tracked him down and killed him. But they didn't know how to put him to rest properly. So they buried him here, carved these warnings into the stone, and left." "Warnings?" "Telling people to stay away, that something dangerous was buried here. But over time, people forgot. The language changed. The symbols stopped meaning anything to anyone." Thomas stood up. "Then the highway came. Then the gas station. And now the Inal Blushi, the skinwalker, has been trying to get free ever since. The rules at the gas station are keeping him contained. Barely. He can't leave that place. Can't take physical form. But he can reach out, touch people who break the rules. Take them." Thomas looked at me. "Your cousin David broke a rule. The skinwalker took him. He's part of it now, trapped between living and dead. Can we help him? Maybe. But first we need to put the Yin al-Blushi to rest. properly this time. Thomas Begay led me back to the top of the ravine. The morning sun was fully up now, heating the desert air. He pulled out an old flip phone and made a call. "Ernesto," he said, "your nephew found the place. We need to talk. Can you close the station for one night?" A pause. "Next Saturday, the new moon." He hung up. "Your uncle will meet us at the gas station tonight. We need to prepare." "Prepare for what?" "A ceremony. To put the Yi Naud Lushi to rest the way it should have been done originally. To give it peace and to free the people it's trapped." "Like David." Thomas nodded. "If we're successful. But this isn't simple. The Skinwalker has been feeding on fear for a long time. It's grown strong. The ceremony has to be done exactly right, or it could break free completely." We drove back to the gas station in separate vehicles. Uncle Ernesto was there, standing in the parking lot with his arms crossed, staring at the building like he was seeing it for the first time. When Thomas and I pulled up and got out, he walked over. "How bad is it?" Uncle Ernesto asked. "Bad enough that we need to act," Thomas said, "but not so bad that we can't fix it. What do you need?" Thomas pulled a small notebook from his pocket and flipped through the pages. "Traditional items for the ceremony: corn pollen, white shell beads, turquoise, cedar for burning, and I need at least 2 other people who've experienced the Yi Naud Lushi, but survived. People who can form a circle." "I've experienced it," Uncle Ernesto said. "I worked night shifts here for 10 years before Jesse took over. I've seen things, followed the rules." "Good, we need one more." Uncle Ernesto thought for a moment. "There's a woman, Gloria Yazzie. She worked here in the late 90s. Only lasted 3 months before she quit, but she followed the rules. She moved to Farmington, but I still have her number." "Call her," Thomas said. "Tell her what we're doing. She'll understand." That night, I didn't work my shift. Instead, Uncle Ernesto closed the gas station early. Something he'd never done in all the years he'd owned the place. He hung a handwritten sign on the door: "Closed for repairs, reopening Sunday." We spent the week gathering what Thomas needed. The corn pollen came from his own supply. Uncle Ernesto had white shell beads that had belonged to his grandmother. I drove to Gallup to buy turquoise from the trader on Highway 602. Thomas gathered cedar branches from the foothills near Sebegati. Gloria Yazzie agreed to come. She was in her 50s now, with short gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses, working as a school administrator in Farmington. When she showed up at the gas station on Saturday evening, just before sunset, she looked nervous and pale. "I haven't been back here in 23 years, she said, staring at the building. "I told myself I'd never come back." "You don't have to do this," Uncle Ernesto said. "Yes, I do." She looked at him. "You know what I saw when I worked here. You know what happened to Tommy Benally. He broke Rule 5, just like David did. I watched him disappear. One second he was standing by the window, the next he was gone. Just his boots on the floor. Another victim. Another person who'd broken the rules and been taken." "How many?" I asked Uncle Ernesto. "How many people have disappeared from this place?" "That I know of? 5. Tommy, David, 2 others before I owned the place, and there might be more I don't know about." He looked at the gas station. "This has been going on since the station opened in 1978, maybe even before that. There was a trading post here in the 50s. It burned down in 64. Some people said it wasn't an accident. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Thomas had us gather in the parking lot, forming a circle near Pump 7. He'd already laid out the materials: bundles of cedar, bowls of corn pollen, the white shell beads arranged in a specific pattern, pieces of turquoise marking the 4 directions. "The ceremony needs to happen at night," Thomas explained. After dark, when the Yi-Naldlushi is strongest, we're going to call it out. Acknowledge what was done to it. Offer it the proper burial rites it should have received, and ask it to release the people it's taken. Will it listen? Gloria asked. If we show proper respect, if we follow the old ways, it should. The Yi-Naldlushi was once a person, a Diné man who turned to dark practices, but even in death, even twisted as he became, that person is still in there somewhere, trapped and angry, but still capable of understanding respect. The sky darkened. Stars came out, bright and sharp in the clear desert air. Thomas lit the cedar bundles, and the smell of smoke filled the parking lot. He began singing in Navajo, words I didn't fully understand but could feel the weight of. Old words, important words. We stood in the circle, hands joined. Thomas had told us not to break the circle no matter what happened, no matter what we saw or heard. The temperature dropped, not gradually, but all at once, like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath came out in clouds. Gloria's hand tightened on mine. The gas station lights began to flicker. Thomas continued singing, his voice steady. He sprinkled corn pollen on the ground, moving in a circle, touching each piece of turquoise. The white shell beads seemed to glow faintly in the starlight. Something moved near the gas station door. A figure, tall and thin with limbs that bent wrong, like joints had been added where they shouldn't exist. Its head tilted at an angle that would have broken a human neck. When it stepped into the light, I saw its face. It looked like David, but not quite. Like someone had tried to remember what David looked like and gotten it slightly wrong. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth stretched too wide. The skin had a waxy quality, like melted plastic reformed into a human shape. Don't look directly at it, Thomas said quietly, still singing between words. Don't break the circle. The figure moved closer. Other shapes appeared behind it. More people I didn't recognize, all of them wrong in small ways. Tommy Benally, according to Gloria's sharp intake of breath. Others whose names I didn't know. All of them taken by the Yi-Naldlushi. All of them trapped. Thomas's singing grew louder. He held up the turquoise, speaking directly to the figures now, his words mixing Navajo and English. We acknowledge the wrong done to you. You were killed without ceremony, buried without respect. The warriors who struck you down feared your power, so they gave you no peace. We offer that peace now. We offer proper rights. We offer release. The figure that looked like David stepped forward. Its mouth opened, and a sound came out that wasn't quite words. More like wind through a narrow canyon. Lonely. Angry. Lost. Let these people go, Thomas continued. They are not yours to keep. They broke rules they didn't understand. They were taken by mistake. Release them. Accept the proper burial. Accept peace. The wind picked up, swirling around our circle. The cedar smoke twisted and danced. The temperature dropped further, cold enough that my teeth chattered. The David figure reached out one hand toward me. Its fingers were too long, the joints bending in too many places. For a moment I saw something behind its eyes. Recognition. Pain. A plea. Then Thomas threw the corn pollen directly at the figure, and everything changed. The figure screamed. That wind-through canyon sound amplified 100 times. All the other shapes screamed with it. The ground beneath us trembled hard. The gas station lights went out completely. But we held the circle. Thomas sang louder, his voice cutting through the screaming. He pulled out a small leather pouch and emptied it on the ground. More corn pollen, mixed with something else. Something that glowed faint blue in the darkness. Go to your rest, he said. Go to the place prepared for you. The way is open. The ceremony is complete. You are acknowledged. You are honored. You are free. The screaming stopped. The wind died. The shapes began to fade, like smoke dissipating. The David figure looked at me one last time, and for just a second, it actually looked like David. Not the wrong version. The real one. And he smiled. Then he was completely gone. All of them were gone. The gas station lights came back on. The temperature rose to normal. The cedar bundles had burned down to ash. Thomas released our hands and we broke the circle. Gloria was crying. Uncle Ernesto looked 10 years older. I felt hollowed out, like something had reached inside and removed everything that wasn't essential. "Is it over?" Uncle Ernesto asked. Thomas knelt, touching the ground where the figures had stood. "The Yinablushi has been released. The ceremony is complete. The people it took are free." He stood, brushing ash from his hands. "But we need to do one more thing. We need to properly mark the burial site. Make sure no one disturbs it again." He looked at the gas station. "And you need to burn those rules. They're not needed anymore." The next morning, Thomas met us at the ravine with his old white truck parked nearby. He brought tools, a shovel, wooden stakes, bags of cement mix, and a large piece of sandstone he'd carved himself over several days. The stone had symbols similar to the old one buried in the dirt, but clearer, deeper, more purposeful. Modern tools making ancient marks. "This will tell people what's here," Thomas explained as we carried the stone down into the ravine. "Not in the old language, that's been forgotten, but in Navajo and in English, a proper marker, so no one disturbs this place again." The inscription read, "Sacred Burial Site, Yi Maldlushi, laid to rest 1880s. Ceremony completed 2024. Do not disturb. Show respect." We set the stone upright near where I'd found the old carved rock, positioning it carefully. Thomas mixed the cement with water from jugs we'd brought and anchored it deep into the rocky soil. Uncle Ernesto and I cleared away some of the trash that had accumulated over the years, the beer cans, the plastic bags, the rusted shopping cart. Gloria brought sage and sweetgrass from Farmington, which Thomas burned while speaking prayers in Navajo. By noon, the site looked different. Not hidden anymore, but marked, acknowledged, properly honored at last. "The land knows now," Thomas said quietly. "The people who come here will know. And the Yinao Lushi has what it was denied: recognition, memory, peace." Uncle Ernesto pulled out the yellow legal paper with the rules, the one that had been folded and refolded so many times, the creases had worn completely soft. He looked at it for a long moment. 10 years, he said. 10 years I carried this in my pocket every night shift, made copies for every employee, lived by these rules. He held it up to the sunlight, reading through them one more time. David died because of Rule 5. Tommy died the same way. How many others? "They died because they didn't have what you gave Jesse," Thomas said. "The knowledge that the rules were real, the will to follow them. You kept people alive with these rules, but now they're not needed." Uncle Ernesto walked to one of the trash barrels outside the gas station, the metal kind with ash from old cigarettes at the bottom. He pulled out a lighter, flicked it open, and held the flame to the corner of the yellow paper. The rules caught fire. We watched them burn, the paper curling and blackening, the words disappearing into smoke and ash. When nothing remained but char, Uncle Ernesto dumped it out onto the asphalt and ground it under his boot. "It's done," he said. The gas station reopened Monday morning. Uncle Ernesto hired someone to work days, a college student from Farmington named Katie, who needed part-time work. I kept the graveyard shift, but now it was just a job. Just night hours at a gas station on a quiet highway. My first shift after the ceremony, I showed up at 11 p.m. expecting, I don't know what. Some sign that things had changed, Some proof that the ceremony had worked. Everything looked normal. The parking lot lights hummed overhead. The coffee pot burbled. The beer cooler rattled. A trucker came in at 11:47 p.m. and bought diesel and a pack of peanuts. An elderly couple stopped at 1:23 a.m. for bathrooms and gas. A young woman came in at 2:15 a.m., bought energy drinks and Takis, paid with a card that went through on the first try. Normal transactions, normal people. At 2:34 a.m., the time when Rule 1 used to trigger, a man walked in. I tensed, waiting to see his eyes, but they were just regular brown eyes, tired eyes, with crow's feet at the corners. He bought a coffee and a breakfast burrito from the hot case, microwaved it for 2 minutes, and sat at one of the small tables by the window to eat. "Long drive?" I asked. "Coming back from Durango. Construction job." He took a bite of burrito. "This place is nice, clean, feels safe. Some gas stations out here at night, they feel wrong, you know. But this one's good." After he left, I realized I'd been holding my breath. No knocking on the back door at 1:47 a.m. No lights going out at 4:31 a.m. No figure appearing on the security monitor at 3:33 a.m. The shift passed quietly, almost peacefully. I cleaned the coffee station, restocked the shelves, helped the occasional customer. At 7 a.m., Uncle Ernesto showed up with Thomas. They'd been talking, planning something. "We want to do one more thing," Uncle Ernesto said. "A blessing. Make it official. Let people know this is a safe place now." Thomas had brought more cedar, more corn pollen, and 4 small stones he'd painted with protective symbols. We placed them at the 4 corners of the gas station property, while Thomas said prayers. He walked the perimeter, sprinkling corn pollen, speaking words that had protected the Diné for centuries. When he finished, he smiled. "This is a good place now. The darkness is gone. What remains is just a gas station on a highway. Nothing more." Over the next few weeks, I noticed changes. Small things. The coffee tasted better, like the pot had been cleaned of years of burnt residue. The fluorescent lights didn't buzz as much. The back storage room felt normal. Just a room with boxes and supplies, not a place where something knocked on welded doors. More people started stopping at night. Word got around somehow, the way word always does on the reservation. Travelers who used to avoid this stretch of highway after dark now pulled in without hesitation. Uncle Ernesto's late-night business actually increased. Gloria came by one evening in early October. She didn't come inside, just stood in the parking lot, looking at the building. "I can feel it," she said when I came out to talk to her. "It's different. The weight is gone, that feeling of being watched." She turned to me. "Tommy would have been 53 this year. His daughter graduated from UNM last spring. She looks just like him." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. He made a choice, a mistake, but a choice, and now he's free." She got back in her car. "Thank you for finishing this, for doing what needed to be done." I thought about David a lot those first few weeks, about how he'd looked at the end when he was finally released. That smile, that moment of recognition. He'd been trapped for 6 months, caught between living and dead, part of the Skinwalker's collection of stolen souls. But now he was gone. Really gone. Not missing. Not trapped. Just gone. The way people are supposed to be when they die. Luis finally convinced me to meet up for breakfast at Blake's. I got off shift at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday and drove to Shiprock, still wearing my work shirt that smelled like coffee and disinfectant. "Dude, you look better," Luis said, studying my face across a table covered with breakfast burritos and orange juice. "You were starting to scare me, like you weren't sleeping, like something was eating at you." "Work was rough for a while," I said, "but it's better now." "You still like the night shift?" I thought about it. The quiet hours, the occasional customer, the way the desert looked under starlight, vast and peaceful. No more rules to follow. No more creatures knocking on welded doors. Just me and the highway, and the normal flow of people passing through. Yeah, I said. I actually do. Uncle Ernesto started talking about expanding, maybe adding a deli counter, better coffee, some local crafts for tourists. The gas station was doing well enough that he could invest in improvements. This place has a good feeling now, he said one morning. People sense it. They want to stop here. It's like Thomas said, it's blessed, protected. The highway itself seemed safer. I looked up the accident statistics on mine. Highway 491, formerly Highway 666, had seen a sharp decline in accidents over the past month. No fatal crashes, no mysterious single-vehicle rollovers, no cars driving off the road, for no reason. The number change in 2003 had helped, but this was different. This was real. One night in late October, around 3 a.m., I was wiping down the counter when I noticed something. Frost had formed on the inside of the front windows just for a moment. It made a pattern, not random, but deliberate. Symbols I'd seen before, the symbols Thomas had carved into the marker stone. I walked closer, and the frost melted away in the warmth of the store, leaving just clean glass and the reflection of fluorescent lights. But I'd seen it. A reminder. A sign. The Yi Maldlushi was at rest. The trapped souls were free. And this place, this simple gas station on the desert highway, was finally just what it should have been all along. Safe ground. Protected. I'm still working the graveyard shift at Crossroads Gas and Food. It's been almost a year now, and I don't see myself leaving. The gas station has changed. Uncle Ernesto added a deli counter, and the coffee is actually good now. People drive out of their way for it. He hung local artwork on the walls, pottery and weavings from Shiprock and Farmington. There's a bulletin board by the door for community flyers. It feels like a real community hub now, a gathering place. Thomas Begay stops by once a month, usually around dawn. He walks the perimeter, checks the protective stones, makes sure everything feels right. Last time, he brought me a small piece of turquoise on a leather cord. For protection, he said, though you don't need it here anymore. I wear it anyway. Gloria visited last week with her daughter, who's studying anthropology at UNM. They wanted to see the memorial stone at the ravine. I took them out there after my shift, and Gloria's daughter took pictures, asked questions about the symbols, about what they meant. She's writing a paper about traditional burial practices and how they've been disrupted by modern development. "This is important," she said, kneeling by the stone. "What you all did here, giving proper acknowledgement. It matters." Gloria cried a little, but in a good way, a relieved way. The highway itself feels different, safer. The state police reported that Highway 491 has had one of its safest years on record. No fatal accidents between Shiprock and the Arizona border. No mysterious single-vehicle crashes. Just a normal, well-maintained road through the desert. Uncle Ernesto jokes that we should put up a sign. Highway 491, formerly cursed, currently blessed. I told him that's probably bad for business, but people know. Word travels on the reservation, through families, through stories told over coffee and at chapter house meetings. People know that something was wrong here, and now it's right. They know that the old darkness has been lifted. My dad called last month. We hadn't spoken since I moved out. He wanted to know if I was okay, if I needed anything. Said he heard I was doing good work, helping people. I'm not sure who told him, but I think it might have been Uncle Ernesto. We talked for almost an hour. It was awkward, but good. He asked if he could visit sometime, maybe grab breakfast at Blake's. I said yes. Luis comes by most nights around 2 a.m. when he gets off his shift at the factory. We sit in the parking lot, drink terrible energy drinks, talk about nothing important. Normal friend stuff. He still doesn't know the full story about what happened here, and that's okay. Some things are better left as stories only a few people carry. Sometimes, late at night when the highway is empty and the desert is quiet, I think about David, about how he looked at the end, finally free, about Tommy Benelli and the others who were trapped. I hope they're at peace. I think they are. The tooth I found that first night, the warm molar from the customer with black eyes, is still in my apartment, wrapped in tissue paper in a drawer. I keep meaning to throw it away, but I haven't. It's a reminder of what this place was, of what it could have been if we hadn't acted, of what it is now. Just a gas station on the desert highway, open 24 hours, serving anyone who needs fuel, coffee, or a safe place to stop. Nothing more, nothing less.